Hello, I'm Sally Pettitt. I'm Head of Horticulture here at Cambridge University Botanic Garden, and today I'm going to take you on a wellness wander. Our glasshouses are currently closed to our visitors, and so I'm going to take you on a private tour through the Glasshouse Range. For this week's wander, we're starting off outside the Continents Apart house. You may spot in the background a few of our visitors who we've been very pleased to welcome in the last few weeks. It's a very bright day, but quite breezy. But we're going to head into the shelter of the glasshouses in a few minutes. But starting off here with a look at Dorianthus excelsa, which has just finished flowering, but which has been gracing us with scarlet flowers. It's quite a difficult plant to grow and get into flower, so we were delighted to have it here in flower with us this spring. And stepping into the Continents Apart house, this always seems like an oasis of calm. The plants in here come from both South Africa and Australasia, and many are grown as much for their foliage and structural value as for their flowers. And just peeping in here, we can see the flowers of an unidentified MELALEUCA. And next to it, another of the MELALEUCAs, which are a member of the myrtle family, Myrtaceae. This is MELALEUCA LATERITIA. And just taking in the lovely stems of this member of the Restio family, Canemois grandis, which erupts into these very graceful, almost wand-like stems to about 3 meters in height. And here we will just take a glance at some of the carnivorous plants we've got in flower now. So STYLIDIUM, GRAMINIFOLIUM, just going over, just the last of the flowers. SARRACENIA's here. And here looking wonderful with these great pitchers. And then heading back along the corridor, which in contrast to many of the houses always seems very much cooler, at least visually. So we're just passing the bird of paradise, STRELITZIA REGINAE. And the rare Kentia palm, although a rarity in the wild on Lord Howe Island, where it's critically endangered. This is a very common houseplant, so may be familiar to many of you, Howea forsteriana. And another rarity in the glass houses, this is Pleuropetalum darwinii, which is quite an extraordinary flower. Again, an endangered species occurring in the Galapagos Islands. And here you can see both the tiny flowers and also these almost blackberry-like fruits, which again themselves are very tiny but glossy and covered, or fruits covered in many individual seeds. I always think the entrance to the glass houses via the corridor really does remind you that we are quite an historic garden. And as you wander along this corridor, there are these old vent covers that protect the heating system, and particularly the door handles These brass door handles really amaze me. You know, if you stop to think just how many people have been through these and handled these doors over the years. As we head into the West Tropics, we're greeted by the Guaiacum officinale, or Lignum vitae, which doesn't look a particularly exciting plant in leaf, but does produce very delicate flowers here. So Guaiacum officinale, again another endangered species. And the wonderful trumpets of Allamanda cathartica. And beneath the gnarly stems of Calliandra HAEMATOCEPHALA, or the powder puff plant, which creates this wonderful canopy for visitors to pass beneath. And there are a number of passion flowers blooming at the moment in the glass houses. This is one of the smallest in flower. This is PASSIFLORA CONTRACTA, which really does have very, very small flowers, only to about 2 centimetres in diameter, but also this gorgeous foliage, which is perhaps far more eye-catching than the flowers themselves. And heading through under one of my favourite climbers, Anemopyagma chamberlainii, and into the palm house, which is a terribly immersive place to be, although on a hot day like today it's perhaps not the most pleasant spot to pick for many minutes. We still have the Darth Vader plant in flower, Aristolochia arborea, whose flowers often sprawl across the woodland floor rather than appearing up on this very, very leggy stem. And nearby, PARARISTOLOCHIA TRIACTINA, which has these extraordinarily shaped flowers which will open slightly more than they are at the moment. We can just make out the foliage here of this heliconia swaying in this welcome breeze. And a glance out of the tropical house door, we can see some of our visitors enjoying both the garden and the weather. And it's so nice to be welcoming so many people back to share the garden with us. From here we're now going to head into the East Tropical House. Again, back into the heat of this wonderful Glasshouse Range. Just passing beneath the jade vine, which there are no remnants of flower left, but it has only just finished flowering. And particularly enjoying this member of the acanthus family, Justicia, BETONICA, which has highly bracted flowers. So this is a member of the Lamium family, or mint or thyme family. And you can see the lipped flowers there, which is so typical of the family. And this is growing beside another of my favourites, THUNBERGIA MYSORENSIS. And it's been a real joy this year to have this in flower since last autumn, and to still have so many pendant racemes dripping down from the ceiling for us to wander through. And then as we head back into the relative cool of the corridor, magnificent Dendrobium, one of the orchids. So this is Dendrobium moschatum, which has this beautiful flower with a very large pouch. And it's growing in this hanging basket, so you can see how leggy the flower stems are of this particular Dendrobium. And heading past the curious Ochna atropurpurea, which almost has kind of eye-like beads on each of the flowers. And beneath the trailing passion flowers here in the tropical wetlands house, and if we look above us, we can just make out these beautiful passion flowers. This is Passiflora nigridina, a real gem which will keep flowering for some time. And while we don't yet have the gigantic leaves of Victoria cruziana here, this nymphaea is putting on such a spectacular show at the moment, it really couldn't be missed. And further along the corridor, just worth taking in the spectacle of the Christ's thorn plant here, Euphorbia milii var splendens, which is such an extraordinary, almost salmony pink colour in flower. And just admiring these wonderful stems of Pachypodium larmerii var larmerii, which is a Madagascan species. And has these particularly attractive thorns, although you wouldn't really want to fall out with them and get into a tussle near this plant. And heading into our last house, the Arid Lands house, just to take in the spectacle of all these extraordinary architectural forms and shapes of many of the cacti grown here, and some showing hints of flower. So particularly this Opuntia microdacis, which is just full of flower buds, but is likely to actually flower overnight. So although you can't enjoy them, we probably won't get to enjoy them either. But just beautiful, just seeing them in bud and how they actually form and develop buds on these wonderfully spined and patterned pads here. and heading back out into the garden past the carnivorous display and just looking out to the fern courtyard, which again provides a welcome resting space in the cool and shade of the cork oak. Thank you for joining me on another Wellness Wander. I hope you'll be able to join me soon.